hope you're doing well. Welcome back to another video. Happy New Year as well for 2026, as this is coming out on New Year's Eve. Yeah, this is going to be a read-watch review for the book Passing by Nella Larsen, and then also I have since watched the film. I just put a little clip in now. Sorry I'm so like red, but actually last night I finished Passing by Nella Larsen, and now I'm going to watch the film. I think it's 2009. I think it came out, or might have been 21. Not too sure, but I think it's like all in black and white. It's meant to have like really interesting sort of cinematography, so I'm excited to watch that, which I'll do now, and then at the end I'll review the book, review the film kind of a little bit. I'm not not a movie reviewer, and say my final thoughts. But yeah, I did actually really enjoy this book, but wait till probably tomorrow. And yeah, it was also like, it's New Year's Eve, like currently now. I'm so red, ew. Anyways. First of all, we'll start off with a review of the book, and the plot is basically in 3 parts. The first is called Encounter, when the 2 main characters, Irene Redfield, who is like the main character really, happens upon a chance encounter with an old childhood sort of like friend that she hasn't seen for over 12 years, Claire Kendry, whilst they're in a sort of like hotel, like roof terracey place in Chicago. And then there's the second encounter, which is in New York, and then a finale, which is the final part of the book. And it's following the 2 women that have like black heritage, but they can be white presenting. And whilst Irene stayed with the black community in Chicago in the South Side and married a black doctor called Brian, and then moved to New York and has 2 children. After the death of Claire's father, she went to her sort of white family and has been passing as white, and has married a white racist man who's vile, and has a daughter with him. And then it sort of like explores sort of passing and the way their lives diverged, and sort of like just the time setting of the 1920s. And yeah, I thought this was written like later than the 1920s. It was published in 1929. I thought it was more like a 50s book, to be honest, when I thought of the book, the classic of Passing. But yeah, it is actually quite old, and it definitely does a great job of putting you in 1920s USA, Chicago and New York. Yeah, I think the way that she writes the sort of like world, or well, our world, but like the time setting, I guess, from a modern lens, is done so well. And yeah, it's definitely a very like well written book, quite easy to understand as well, from being like nearly 100 years old. Overall it's one I would so recommend. For star rating, I think I'm flirting between a 4 and a 4.25. I did definitely enjoy lots of parts. I did think it did a great job of what she was trying to do with the book and tell the story, but I didn't particularly love it. But first of all, I thought I'll just go through a few quotes that I have quite a few in here that I did really enjoy, just to sort of pad out the review a bit. The first is that because when they first meet, Irene is in a white segregated sort of hotel, I think it's called the Dayton Hotel. The woman that is Claire has been staring at her, and she's like, have I been found out? And she's about sort of like, can white people tell? Never, when she was alone, had they ever remotely seemed to suspect that she was a Negro. No, the women sitting there staring at her couldn't possibly know. Nevertheless, Irene felt in turn anger, scorn and fear slide over her. It wasn't that she was ashamed of being a Negro, or even of having it declared. It was the idea of being ejected from any place, even in the polite and tactful way in which the Drayton would probably do it, that disturbed her. I mean, it does a great job of just showing sort of the stupidity of like the segregation, because like, why can someone not be in that space just because they are black? It's just so Oh, it just makes you just like angry, to be honest. And then after she learns that Claire has been passing, she says that the truth was she was curious. There were things that she wanted to ask Claire Kendry. She wished to find out about this hazardous business of passing, this breaking away from all that was familiar and friendly to take one's chance in another environment, not entirely strange perhaps, but certainly not entirely friendly. What, for example, one did about background, how one accounted for oneself, and how one felt when one came into contact with other Negroes. But she couldn't. She was unable to think of a single question that, in its context or its phrasing, was not too frankly curious, if not actually impertinent. And then Claire asks, like, why her and other women haven't the sort of thought to pass more, you know. And she said it's such a frightfully easy thing to do if one's a type. All that's needed is a little nerve. Then Irene says, what about background, family? I mean, surely you can't just drop down on people from nowhere and expect that a diamond to receive you with open arms, can you? Almost, Claire asserted. You'll be surprised, really, how much easier this is with white people than with us. Maybe because there are so many more of them, or maybe because they are secure and so don't have to bother. I've never quite decided. And then it just like goes to explain sort of the way she got to being like in her position, I guess. Then it's at sort of like having drinks with Claire and another like old childhood friend, Gertrude Martin, and they're talking about like themselves, I guess. She says, after taking up her own glass, she informed them, this is Claire speaking, no, I have no boys and I don't think I'll ever have any. I'm afraid. I nearly died of terror the whole 9 months before Marjorie was born for fear that she might be dark. Thank goodness she turned out all right, but I'll never risk it again. Never. The strain is simply too hellish. And then, you don't have to tell me, Gertrude said fervently. I know what it's like, all right. Maybe you don't think I wasn't scared to death too. Fred said I was silly, and so did his mother, but of course they thought it was just a notion I'd gotten into my head, and they blamed it on my condition. They don't know, like we do, how it might go back and turn out dark no matter what colour the father and mother are. And then still Gertrude later, why, talking about her husband, he actually said he didn't care what colour it turned out if I would only stop worrying about it, but of course nobody wants a dark child. It's like, it's horrible to read that. Even, I guess the ingrained hatred of blackness and their race, that they don't want their child to be dark. And especially because, well, Irene, she has her husband is black and her children are dark as well. Sort of having to sit there whilst they're talking about that, and sort of the way they've changed their view because of the people they've surrounded themselves with. After when Claire's husband John comes, and he says these vile racist things, she said, it was, Irene thought, unbelievable and astonishing that 4 people could sit so unruffled, so ostensibly friendly, while they were in reality seething with anger, mortification, shame. So perhaps was Gertrude Martin. At least she hadn't the mortification and shame that Claire Kendry must be feeling, or in such full measure the rage and rebellion that she, Irene, was repressing. Later, when it's in like counterpart, Claire is saying that I don't blame you for being angry, that though I must say you behaved beautifully that day, but I did think you'd understand, really. It was that partly that has made me want to see other people. It just swooped down and changed everything. If it hadn't been for that, I'd have gone on to the end, never seeing any of you, but that did something to me. And I've been so lonely since, you can't know, not close to a single soul, never anyone to really talk to. And then Irene says, oh, forgive me. And she said, no, not at all, you couldn't. Nobody, none of you could. Claire moaned, how could you know? How could you? You're free, you're happy, and with faint derision, not sure how to pronounce that, safe. Irene passed over that touch of derision, for the poignant rebellion of the other's words had brought the tears to her own eyes. I'm beginning to believe, she murmured, that no one is ever completely happy or free or safe. Well then, why does it matter? One risk more or less if we're not safe anyway, if even you're not. It can't make all the difference in the world. It can't to me. Besides, I'm used to risk, and this isn't such a big one as you're trying to make it out. And yeah, I think that's a good way of sort of exploring Claire's sort of the risks that she's taken and the life that she is living. Although she isn't like completely happy or safe, maybe it doesn't matter as much. But yeah, my thoughts are a little bit mashed up at the moment, sorry. But yeah, I have 2 more quotes to share. I don't want to spoil anything, but I think this is a good quote, so I'm just going to say it sort of out of context. But it's like, she was caught between 2 allegiances, different yet the same: herself, her race, the thing that bound and suffocated her. Whatever step she took, or if she took none at all, something would be crushed, a person or the race. Nothing she imagined was ever more completely sardonic. Sitting alone in the quiet living room in the pleasant firelight, Irene Redfield wished for the first time in her life that she had not been born a Negro. For the first time she suffered and rebelled because she was unable to disregard the burden of race. It was, she cried silently, enough to suffer as a woman, as an individual, on one's own account, without having to suffer for the race as well. It was a brutality and undeserved. Surely no other people so cursed as Ham's dark children. And yeah, it's just because she's sort of put in a position of, you know, keeping Claire's secret of her passing, and the fact that she has become more included within the black scene in Harlem, New York, where they live. And she has sort of some other thoughts and feelings as well. She's like, well, I've been put into a position, but like, I don't want to have to keep this secret, and I have my own life as well to lead and things, and sort of the difficulties that she's trying to deal with. And then the final part is about Irene and her husband Brian, and about trying to she wants to keep their sons away from the wickedness that racism is, with you know, slurs used against black people and lynchings and like segregation and other facets of racism within 1920s New York or USA. She doesn't want the children knowing of all the brutalities, but Brian thinks differently. Stupid, she cried. Is it stupid to want my children to be happy? Her lips were quivering. At the expense of proper preparation for life and their future happiness, yes. And I'd feel I hadn't done my duty by them if I didn't give them some inkling of what's before them. It's the least I can do. I wanted to get them out of this hellish place years ago. And yeah, I think that's the interesting sort of like way that the 2 parents are trying to parent their children. But yeah, I think that's all the sort of like quotes I have. I did like actually read this interesting sort of like dissertation proposal, I think it was, for some university in America. I just sort of was like searching things online about passing, and it was sort of like exploring some of the queer undertones within the book. I didn't particularly see them on my first reading. Maybe if I was to, you know, give it a reread, which I will do, I'm definitely going to keep this book and give it a reread in a few years maybe, because I did think it was very good. But maybe I could sort of like read into them a bit more. But it was quite interesting, and sort of some of the, maybe the friendship is a little bit more between Irene and Claire. Also Brian, maybe he has, his sexuality isn't fully straight, and that the author includes some sort of like queer like writers within the book later on when they're talking about sort of like a party and stuff. But yeah, I thought that was quite an interesting sort of angle that I hadn't really thought about. Also like the ending, I was like, wow. I was like, what? So yeah, it's definitely one that I think would be great as a book club. 100% this book is so good as a book club book. And sort of you can sort of discuss the ending with other people. I'm just like, what happened? Like, what happened? But yeah, I think that's all my thoughts for this book. It's like well written. There's a really good sense of sort of like increasing anxiety as the book goes along. But yeah, one I would so recommend. I think I didn't, some of the writing was a little bit like I had to sort of go back and sort of read it again, but it is well written, and like maybe it focused a little bit on parts that I didn't think was particularly pertinent to the actual story, and sort of repeated a little few things. But yeah, overall a very, very decent read, and one I would recommend. This is also one of my 25 or 2025, so I'm happy I got to another one, which brought my total to 14, so that's really, really good. For the film, I watched that last night, obviously. I put a little, like, the movie poster there. I enjoyed it. I think for star rating, around a 3.75. I definitely prefer the book. A few things have been changed, the main one being that, like, it's all set in New York, so it's not sort of, also I think the timings as well, it felt a bit more that, like, the first encounter and then the second one aren't as far apart as they actually are. A few characters removed. Overall, I think all the plot points are done, like, well. I did enjoy the sort of, like, cinematography and the fact that it was in black and white, and sort of like the music and other sort of like frames that were put gave a good sense of this impending anxiety that the book does. But I think maybe a few times it sort of just like lingers on like nothing scenes where nothing's really happening, but like it kind of is, but not fully. Whilst in the book we do get those scenes where not really that much is happening, but you're in the mind of Irene in a sense as she's thinking things over, which doesn't fully come across as well on the screen. I think with the book you can really like get into her character and what she's trying to think and stuff. Yeah, overall I would recommend both of them. Definitely prefer the book though. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this video. And yeah, have a happy new year, and I shall see you all in 2026. Have a nice morning, night, wherever you are in the world. Bye.